Hey everyone, welcome back. Or if you're just joining us, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I'm Spencer.
And I'm Katie.
And in this part of our farming agricultural series, we're going to be talking about hydroponic farming. So, what is hydroponic farming? Hydroponics is a way of growing plants without soil. Instead, the plants grow in water that has special nutrients in it. The plants grow with their roots in the nutrient solution or on a special surface like perlite or gravel. Sometimes the roots can change the balance of the nutrient solution and release substances that can affect the plants and the water. With hydroponics, scientists can also grow special plants that release medicines through their roots and into the water. Hydroponics growing uses different types of nutrients to help the plants grow. These nutrients can come from fish poop, duck manure, special chemicals you buy, or a special mix of nutrients made just for hydroponic growing. Some plants that are grown this way are tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, strawberries, lettuce, and even marijuana. These plants are usually grown in a special place like a greenhouse or a controlled environment, where everything can be kept just right for the plants. Scientists also use a special plant to research in plant science and genetics. Growing plants with hydroponics saves a lot of water. It takes 214 liters of water to grow 1 kilogram of tomatoes using normal farming methods, but using hydroponics, it only takes 70 liters of water. And with aeroponics, it only takes 20 liters of water. Growing plants using hydroponics often leads to higher plant growth and production of more food compared to growing them in soil or other materials. This happens even if the plants are grown in the same environment and given the same amount of nutrients. Growing plants using hydroponics takes less water and nutrients than other methods. This could be helpful in the future for people living in places with tough climates and not much access to water. They could grow their own food using hydroponics. And hydroponics is not only used on Earth, but has also proven itself in plant production experiments in space.
So now let's talk a little bit about the history of hydroponics. So the idea of growing plants without soil started a long time ago in the 1600s. A scientist named Francis Bacon wrote a book about it, and other scientists continued to study it. In the late 1800s, two scientists, Julius von Sachs and Wilhelm Knopp, did experiments and found out that plants can grow well without soil if they have the right nutrients and water. This idea became very popular in the 1900s and is still used by scientists today to study how plants grow. So in the early 1900s, scientists started looking into why some plants got sick in certain soil conditions. They did experiments using water instead of soil to grow plants and found that they could control the conditions better in the lab. This idea was popularized by a scientist named William Garrick from the University of California, who grew tomato plants very tall in a water-based solution instead of soil. So this type of growing plants in water instead of soil was called hydroponics. The word comes from two Greek words, hydro meaning water and ponos meaning work or labor, meaning working with water to grow plants. In the 1930s, scientists started to study how different soil conditions can affect plant health. They did experiments growing plants without soil in a controlled environment. William Garrick, who worked at the University of California, was a big supporter of this method and thought it could be used to grow crops. He even grew a tomato plant that was 25 feet tall in his backyard using this method and called it hydroponics. However, Garrick faced some challenges. He was not allowed to use the university's greenhouses for his experiments, and the university wanted him to share his research and findings. Garrick wanted to do more research and make sure everything was perfect before sharing it with others. Because of these disagreements, Garrick left his job at the university and continued his research on his own. In 1940, he published a book called Complete Guide to Soilless Gardening, where he shared his findings and the formula for growing plants using hydroponics. In 1938, two scientists named Dennis Hoagland and Daniel Arnon wrote a report about growing plants without soil, also known as hydroponics. They said that growing crops with the hydroponics was no better than growing crops in soil. However, 2 years later, William Garrick, who first came up with the idea of hydroponics, said that the report was not accurate. He said that the report only compared the growth of a few plants in hydroponics and soil, and that the growth of plants in hydroponics could be limited by things like light and air in the growing area, not just the nutrients. So over time, Garrick's ideas about hydroponic growing became important in commercial agriculture. Hoagland and his colleagues also made new formulas for nutrient solutions that are used in hydroponic growing. Hydroponics was used on Wake Island, a small island in the Pacific Ocean, in the 1930s. Wake Island was a stop for an airline company, and they needed to grow food for passengers. But the island had no soil, so they used hydroponics to grow vegetables. This was the first time hydroponics was successful, and it helped solve the problem of not having soil and not being able to afford to bring in fresh vegetables from far away. So during World War II, Daniel I. Arnon was a major in the army and used his knowledge of growing plants to help feed soldiers of Ponape Island. The island had no good land for farming, so Arnon grew crops in gravel and water with special nutrients to keep them healthy. This was an important way for the soldiers to get fresh food. And in the 1960s, a guy named Alan Cooper from England came up with a new way to grow plants using hydroponics called the nutrient film technique. In 1982, a big park called the Epcot Center opened at Walt Disney World and has a special place called the Land Pavilion that shows different ways to grow plants using hydroponics. And finally, recently, NASA has been doing a lot of research on hydroponics. They're using hydroponics to grow plants in a controlled environment like they would on Mars. They use special lights that give off different colors of light, and they don't make much heat. A plant expert at NASA thinks that hydroponics will help make space travel better in the future by growing plants that can provide food and clean air for astronauts.
And then we'll just briefly go over a couple of different techniques that you can use with hydroponics. So we'll talk about static solution culture. So as we mentioned, with hydroponic gardening, plants grow in containers filled with water and nutrients instead of soil. This type of growing is called static solution culture. People use containers like glass jars, pots, or tanks to grow their plants. The water in the container is kept aerated with air bubbles so the roots have access to oxygen. If the water isn't aerated, it is kept low enough so the roots are still above the water and can breathe. A single container can be used for one plant or for several plants. If the container is made of glass, it can be covered with materials like aluminum foil, butcher paper, or black plastic to keep light from getting in and affecting the plant's growth. The nutrient solution in the container is changed on a schedule, or when the concentration gets low and more water or new nutrients are added. In another type of hydroponic gardening called raft solution culture, the plants are put on a piece of plastic that floats on top of the water and nutrients. This way, the water level never goes below the roots.
There's also continuous flow solution culture. So in continuous flow solution culture, the water with nutrients that plants need to grow is always moving. This makes it easier to control the temperature, pH, and amount of nutrients in the water because they can be adjusted in a big tank that can take care of many plants at once. One way to do that is called the nutrient film technique, or NFT. In this method, a thin stream of water with all the nutrients the plants need is constantly moving past the roots. This way, the plants always have access to water, oxygen, and nutrients. The benefit of this is that it can lead to bigger and better crops over a long time. However, if there's a problem with the flow of water, like a power outage, the plants won't have what they need to grow. But overall, the nutrient film technique is a pretty effective way to grow plants using hydroponics. So the way that NFT hydroponic systems are built should follow certain guidelines. Usually they suggest having a slope of about 1 to 100, but it can be hard to make the surface level enough for the water to flow smoothly. So it's better to use a slope of 1 to 30 to 1 to 40. This helps even if the surface isn't completely flat. The slope can be made by the floor or by using racks or benches to hold the channels at the right angle. It depends on what is best for the plants being grown and the area they're being grown in. So when using the NFT system, the water flow should be around 1 liter per minute for each plant. When the plants are just starting to grow, the water flow can be lower, around half a liter per minute. But it shouldn't be more than 2 liters per minute because that could cause problems. If the channel is too long, like more than 12 meters, the plant might not grow so well. So it's best to keep the channel length at 10 to 15 meters or less. If the channel has to be longer, you can add another water source halfway to keep the plants healthy.
And then we'll go over aeroponics. So aeroponics is a way of growing plants where the roots are kept in an area filled with tiny droplets of a nutrient solution. This way of growing does not need any dirt or soil, and instead the plants are suspended in a chamber where their roots are regularly sprayed with a mist of nutrient solution. The big advantage of aeroponics is that the roots get a lot of fresh air. People have used aeroponics to grow different things like seeds, tomatoes, and small greens. With aeroponics, the growth environment can be more precisely controlled, and all parts of the plant receive a steady supply of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which helps plants grow faster and stronger. NASA has studied aeroponics and found that plants grown this way had an 80% increase in dry weight and use 65% less water compared to hydroponically grown plants. Aeroponics also reduces the risk of disease and pathogens and doesn't cause transplant shock when the plants are moved to soil. Aeroponics is also useful for research because the mist is easier to handle in a zero-gravity environment like in space.
There's also Fogponics. So Fogponics is a type of aeroponics that uses ultrasonic sound waves to turn the nutrient solution into tiny droplets. These droplets are much smaller than those created in regular aeroponics, making it easier for them to mix with air and reach the roots of the plants. This way the plants get both the nutrients and oxygen they need to grow.
And then there's passive sub-irrigation as a technique. So, passive sub-irrigation is a way of growing plants without having to water them all the time. The plants are grown in a special material that can hold water and nutrients. This material helps move water and food to the roots as needed, so the plants have a constant supply of water and food. This makes it easier for the grower and helps keep the roots healthy. Different materials can be used for passive sub-irrigation, such as expanded clay and coconut husk. These materials have more space for air, which is important for certain types of plants like orchids and bromeliads. Passive sub-irrigation also helps prevent root rot and adds extra moisture to the air. Growing plants in hydroculture can produce 10 times more crops per area compared to traditional farming. It also uses 13 times less water for one crop cycle, but it takes 100 times more energy in the form of kilojoules per kilogram.
And then there's ebb and flow. So there's a big tray and a big container below it with water and nutrients. So the tray is filled with something called growing medium, like clay, and the plants are either planted directly into or put in pots on top of it. The timer makes a pump come on at regular times to fill the tray with water and nutrients from the big container below. This keeps the plants well fed and with enough air. When the tray gets too full, the water starts to flow back into the big container until the timer turns the pump off. Rather than a continuous stream, plant roots are flooded with nutrient water mix. Water is continuously emptied back into reservoir to be reused.
There's run to waste. The run-to-waste system is a way of growing plants where they are given a mixture of water and nutrients regularly. This system was first thought of in Bengal in the year 1946, so sometimes people call it the Bengal system. This method of growing plants is done in different ways. One simple way is by hand. People add a mixture of water and nutrients to a container filled with materials for plants to grow in, like rock wool, perlite, vermiculite, cocoa fiber, or sand. Another way is with a machine that adds the mixture automatically. This machine has a pump, a timer, and tubes to bring the mixture to the plants. In big farms, computers control how often the mixture is added. Big plants like tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers are often grown using this method in big farms. To be good for the environment, the leftover mixture is collected and cleaned so it can be used again. This makes growing plants using this method very efficient.
And then there's deep water culture. So deep water culture is usually done using big containers like plastic buckets, and the plants are placed into a special pot that is suspended in the water. Because the roots get a lot of oxygen, the plants grow faster. The Kratky method is similar, but uses a still water reservoir instead of constantly circulating the water. So top-fed deep water culture. It's a way of growing plants where the roots are in a tank of water that has nutrients and oxygen in it. In this method, water is pumped from the tank and goes directly to the root of the plants. The water then flows back into the tank and the process repeats. A machine called an airstone helps add more oxygen to the water, and it runs all the time, 24 hours a day. The big advantage of top-fed deep water culture is that the plants start growing faster than with regular deep water culture. This is because the roots can access the water right away. But once the roots have reached the water in the tank, there's not much difference between top-fed deep water culture and regular deep water culture. However, because of the faster growth in the beginning, it can reduce the time it takes for the plants to grow.
And then there is rotary. A rotary hydroponic garden is a type of hydroponic growing system where plants are grown in a circular frame that keeps rotating. The plants are turned around 24 times each day so they get equal exposure to light and water. In the center of the circle, there is a light that mimics sunlight and helps the plants grow. The plants are also given a nutrient solution regularly to help them grow stronger. Plants grown in a rotary hydroponic garden mature faster than those grown in soil or other hydroponic systems because they are constantly moving. The system is also more space efficient than other hydroponic systems. However, rotary hydroponic gardens are not recommended for most people because they are still experimental and can be expensive to set up and maintain.
So next we're going to briefly go over some different substrates or underlying layers here. So first we'll go over rock wool. Rock wool, also known as mineral wool, is a type of material that is commonly used in hydroponic growing. It is made by melting rock, basalt, or slag and then spinning it into thin fibers, which are then bonded together to form a medium that can hold water and air, which helps plants to grow. So rock wool is often used in the early stages of plant growth, but it can be used throughout the plant's life. Rock wool has some benefits, like being efficient and effective for growing plants, but it can also be irritating to the skin if you handle it a lot. So to make rock wool work well for plants, it needs to have the right pH level, which is usually achieved by treating it before using it.
And then another option is expanded clay aggregate. So, baked clay pellets are a type of material used in hydroponic growing systems. In hydroponics, the plants grow in water with nutrients instead of soil. Baked clay pellets are special because they are neutral, meaning they don't change the pH of the water and they don't have any nutrients in them. The clay is heated at very high temperatures to make the pellets. This makes the pellets light and airy so they won't get packed down over time. They come in different shapes and can be cleaned and used again. Some people think that washing them in certain solutions can help make them safe to use again, but others believe that the root growth from previous crops can get into the pellets and make them unsafe.
And then there's grow stones, which are made from recycled glass, and they're a great choice for hydroponic gardening. They have more room for air and water to help plants grow and can hold more water than other materials like perlite and peat. Each bag of grow stones contains a small amount of calcium carbonate, which is good for plants, and the rest is made of recycled glass.
There is coconut coir. Coconut coir is a material made from the fibers of coconut husks. The fibers are left over after making other things like floor mats and brushes. Coir needs to go through a process to get rid of salt, chemicals, and other things that might harm plants. This process can take up to 6 months and uses a lot of water. But even though it has some downsides, coconut coir is a good material for growing plants because it can hold a lot of water and helps keep plants healthy. When you add water to coconut coir, it gets bigger and soft. This makes it a good alternative to rock wool for growing plants and hydroponics.
There's also rice husks. These are parboiled rice husks, or PBH, are a waste product from growing rice. They can be used in hydroponics, but they break down over time and do not hold as much water as grow stones. A study showed that using rice husks as a growing medium didn't have any negative impact on plant growth.
And then there's perlite, and that is a type of rock that has been heated up until it becomes lightweight pieces of glass. It is often used in hydroponic systems or mixed in with soil to make it lighter. Although perlite is good for plants in some ways, it contains a lot of a substance called fluorine that can be harmful to certain plants. In comparison to another growing medium called vermiculite, perlite holds more air and less water, and also floats.
And then there is vermiculite. Vermiculite is a mineral that has been heated up until it turns into light pebbles. It holds more water than perlite and can naturally bring water and nutrients to the plant in a hydroponic system. But if the plant's roots have too much water and not enough air, you can make the medium have less water by mixing it with more perlite.
There's pumice. Like perlite, pumice is a lightweight mined volcanic rock that finds application in hydroponics.
There's also sand. Sand may be a cheap option. It's also pH neutral, so it won't affect the pH of your hydroponic system. However, it is heavy, does not hold water very well, and must be sterilized between uses. Also, the ongoing surge in demand for sand has made it a scarce commodity. This natural resource is commonly used in computer microchips, construction, and is an active ingredient in cosmetics. But the current supply of this material has not been able to keep up with the speed of global urbanization.
There's gravel. The kind of gravel that is used for aquariums can also be used for hydroponics, but it is important to wash it first. Plants that are grown in a gravel bed with water being pumped by an electric pump are actually being grown using a type of hydroponics called nutriculture. Gravel is cheap, easy to clean, and does not get too much water. However, it is also heavy, and if the water does not keep flowing, the roots of the plant might dry out.
There's also wood fiber. It's made up from grinding of wood and can be used in hydroponics. It lasts a long time and has been used for a while in hydroponics research, but new studies show that it may not be good for plant growth.
There's sheep wool. Sheep wool can be used as a growing medium for plants in hydroponics. A study compared it to other materials like peat, coconut fibers, perlite, and rock wool. The results showed that sheep wool has a lot of air space and can hold a lot of water, which helps plants grow well. In the study, plants grown in sheep wool had the best results, and using a special mixture of humic acid, lactic acid, and Bacillus subtilis made all the materials even better for growing plants.
There's also brick shards. They have similar properties to gravel. They have added disadvantages of possibly altering the pH and requiring extra cleaning before reuse.
There is polystyrene packing peanuts. Polystyrene packing peanuts are cheap and easy to find, and they allow water to drain easily, but they are too light for some uses. They mostly get used in special tubes. You have to make sure to use the type of peanuts that don't break down, because the ones that do will turn into a messy substance. Also, plants may soak up styrene and give it to people who eat them, which could be dangerous for their health.
All right, so finally, we're going to just briefly discuss some solutions here. So, inorganic hydroponic solutions. Hydroponic solutions are a way to grow plants without soil using a special liquid that contains all the nutrients the plants need. The liquid is different from soil because it doesn't have clay particles or organic matter that can hold on to certain substances. This means the liquid can change quickly, which can affect the plant's growth. To make sure the plants get the right nutrients, the solution has to be adjusted and balanced often. There are standard recipes for these solutions, and it's important to get the right amount of nutrients for each type of plant. If the solution is too weak or strong, the plants may not grow well.
And there's also organic hydroponic solutions. So organic fertilizers can be used instead of regular chemical fertilizers in hydroponic growing, but using organic fertilizers can cause some problems. Those include the nutrition content of organic fertilizers can vary a lot, even if they look similar. Some organic fertilizers come from animal products, so there is a risk of spreading disease to plants that people or animals will eat. Organic fertilizers can be chunky and clog up the growing equipment. They need to be ground into a fine powder before being used. Organic fertilizers can take time to break down and release their nutrients to the plants. Some organic fertilizers, like manures, can stink up the growing area if they aren't breaking down properly. Some organic fertilizers need extra oxygen to break down, which can be a problem for the plant's roots. And some organic compounds are not essential for plant growth. So if precautions are taken, organic fertilizers can still be used in hydroponics successfully.
All right, and then let's talk about additives. So there are things you can add to hydroponic systems to help the plants grow better. These can be both organic and non-organic compounds. Some of these things are called chelating agents and humic acid, and they can help the plants get more nutrients from the soil. There are also bacteria that can help plants grow better. These bacteria are called plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, or PGPR. Some bacteria can even help the plant get more nitrogen, which is important for growth. Another type of bacteria called Rhodopseudomonas palustris can help make the plant use nitrogen better, which can lead to bigger yields and less nitrogen in the plant when it is harvested. Some types of bacteria can also help the plant get more phosphorus, which is another important nutrient. In some cases, adding certain types of bacteria, such as bacillus, can help the plants grow even in water that has high salt levels. This can be especially helpful in places where the water has a lot of salt. This can save money on special filtration systems and still lead to a good crop.
We'll just go over a couple of the different tools you may need if you're thinking of starting a hydroponic growing system. So managing nutrient concentrations, oxygen saturation, and pH values within acceptable ranges is essential. So some things you may need, it could be an electrical conductivity meter, and that is a tool that estimates the ppm of nutrients by measuring how well a solution transmits an electric current. You may need or want a pH meter, and that is a tool that uses an electric current again to determine the concentration of hydrogen ions in solution. You may need an oxygen electrode, which is an electrochemical sensor for determining the oxygen concentration in solution. Litmus paper, which is a disposable pH indicator strip that determines hydrogen ion concentrations by color changing chemical reaction. Graduated cylinders or measuring spoons may also be needed to measure out pre-mixed commercial hydroponic solutions. And you may also need tools that will be used to perform accurate chemical analysis of nutrient solutions. So those could be balances to accurately measure materials, laboratory glassware such as burettes and pipettes for performing titrations, colorimeters for solution tests, which apply the Beer-Lambert law, spectrophotometer to measure the concentrations of the key parameter nitrate and other nutrients such as phosphate, sulfate, or iron, Using these tools can be beneficial to growers of any background because nutrient solutions are often reusable. Because nutrient solutions are virtually never completely depleted, refortification of old solutions with new nutrients can save growers money and can control point source pollution, which is a common source for the eutrophication of nearby lakes and streams. There are also some software programs out there that could help as well. If you want to grow plants using hydroponics, you don't need to necessarily know a lot about chemistry. There are tools that can help you make your own nutrient solution. HydroBuddy and HydroCal are two programs that can help you do this. HydroBuddy works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Linux. Okay. While HydroCal works through a website. These programs make it easy to mix your own nutrient solution, even if you don't have a lot of knowledge about chemistry. HydroBuddy even lets you save your own special mix of nutrients and predict how much electrical conductivity it will have.
So last here, we'll just go over what people consider benefits and what some people consider to be disadvantages. So first, we'll talk about the benefits. Hydroponics has many benefits, like giving the plant roots constant access to oxygen and allowing the plant to get as much or as little water as nutrients as it needs. This helps prevent over and underwatering, which is a common problem in soil growing. In hydroponics, water can be drained away if the plant doesn't need it, which helps keep the roots from getting too much water and drowning. In soil growing, a grower needs to know exactly how much water to give the plant or it could have problems. There's more plant density, so plants can be easily moved as they grow, decreased area required, so more plants can grow in the same amount of space, and you're able to grow plants vertically, again, giving more space. Also, higher crop yields. It's been reported that hydroponic greenhouses have higher crop yields and better quality produce. Oh, my light died. So it's been reported that hydroponic greenhouses have higher crop yields and better quality produce compared to traditional. And there's also a help of AI for monitoring. And then finally, there's less water waste. So there's less water evaporation. The disadvantages. So there's a larger initial investment. With hydroponics come the added cost of a building, pumps, tanks, controls, and a supplemental lighting system. And there's also higher energy costs. Most of the technology involved needs electricity, whereas with traditional farming, the sun provides a lot of the energy for your plants, leading to less electricity costs comparatively. And more technical skills required, so at least some understanding of chemistry, monitoring and growing systems, and basic plant production knowledge is needed.
Now that we have gone over hydroponic farming, next we'll be discussing organic farming. As always, you can leave a comment below if you have any topic ideas you want to hear us talk about in future episodes.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and we occasionally live stream on Twitch, so make sure to follow us there to see when we do.
And don't forget to give this video a like, as well as follow or subscribe to our other social media accounts and turn on notifications so that you get notified when our new content comes out. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video.